Bueno, parece que ya hemos empezado. Bienvenidos al Espacio Fundación Telefónica. Hoy estamos aquí.
So it looks like we already started. We are in Telefónica Movistar Plus Foundation. She's Mariló, García, Alberto, Rhea. We are with the two stars of the show, Bob Odenkirk and Rhea Seehorn, with you.
Rhea Seehorn, perdón, siempre pronuncio mal su nombre.
I'm sorry, I always mispronounce the name. Okay, the idea is that you should participate also by via streaming and social networks. And let's see the clip of the third season now.
A Jimmy McGill no le han ido muy bien las cosas. Puede que en esta temporada le vaya mejor siendo otra persona. Ha llegado el momento de Saul Goodman. Better Call Saul. Tercera temporada, en Movistar Series.
Bueno, antes de... Bueno, sabéis que está...
Okay, so you know that tonight we're airing the second episode. He's translating himself now.
La que es el episodio que le esperaba.
Tonight's episode, it's one of the best of the whole series, and for all the audience fans who have such a mixed feeling about the story progressing forward, you know, everybody can't wait to see Saul and have him become Saul, but also everybody is a little bit trepidatious. They want to relish it as long as possible. Well, tonight's a big step forward, I think.
Did you expect such a big success for this series? ¿Esperabais tener tanto éxito?
I think it would be dangerous to expect success for any series on television, but if Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould say that they want to write a prequel to a show, you assume that they have a pretty great story in mind, and I think all of us have been incredibly grateful for the fans accepting it as wonderfully as they have.
I was so ready for us to be hated.
Yeah, because people could just hate you for not being Breaking Bad season 6.
I mean, anytime you have something you love and somebody does anything off it, a version of it, I mean, a song that you love, you know, a movie, a TV show, a remake, you're always suspicious, and you don't want the love that you had for that original thing to just be cheaply used to sucker you in. And so I think what Vince, you know, nobody loves Breaking Bad more than Vince Gilligan, who created it, and Peter Gould, who was a part of it as well. And I think that one of the things that these guys love to do, and I've gotten to know them over these years, is create trouble for themselves, problems. And so they created sort of the biggest problem they could for themselves, which is following it up in the same vein with a few of the characters, but not the same thing, and try to win, you know, critics and the audience with it. So.
Yeah.
¿Cuándo visteis que los personajes funcionaban?
When did you realize that the characters worked and the audience was with you?
Well, I think from the first episode that played, I was shocked at the good-natured response. The generally feeling of like, this is interesting, let's see where it goes, which is more open-minded than I think we usually give credit to people for, you know. There's so much snark and cheap, easy criticism in our world, and especially on the internet. You just get used to it, and you think that's everyone's reaction all the time to everything. But for some reason, you know, we had a lot of goodwill towards us. So right away, I thought that was a great sign, because I knew how hard Vince and Peter had worked at establishing this, and also that we kind of clicked, me and Rhea and everybody in the cast. I had a good time together, felt strong about the work we'd done. But, you know, really, I would say not until I mean, 3/4 of the way through the first season did I feel like, wait, maybe we're on solid ground here.
Shooting it or audience watching it?
No, showing it. No, shooting it. Man, I never even thought. It's so weird. When you spend so many years, like I have, developing projects that never get anywhere, sometimes making a pilot and never gets shown, you stop even thinking anyone will see what you do. You just care about the thing itself, bringing it to some place where you're satisfied with it, and then you just are very used to it rotting away on a shelf. And so when the billboards went up, I've said this before, is when I went, oh shit, people are going to watch this. Okay, well, I hope it's good. Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I don't know. That seems crazy, right? But it's true.
But that's what happens. It's a strange experience. We're shooting for 4 to 5 months in New Mexico, Albuquerque, and you're sort of isolated. And Bob's right. We all did sort of click, and it has to do with when you saw the scripts is when you first knew, oh, wow, there is incredible depth. And then I watched Bob make this Jimmy McGill character with the writers and the directors, that suddenly you had empathy and compassion for this whole three-dimensional human being that's behind the mask that we knew as Saul. But then you do start clicking and together and working off each other, and the whole crew, which is largely the Breaking Bad crew, many of the writers from Breaking Bad, many of the directors from Breaking Bad, you then really realize that everyone here has an incredible sense of sincerity about honoring the great storytelling that they've started and honoring the fans that follow it. But Bob's right. By the time you're done 5 months of shooting, you feel like you've written this like super personal little poem, and then someone's like, people are going to read it now. And you freak out because you don't know what they're going to think. But they embrace us, and we were very grateful for that.
I'm still shocked, even at being here, and even at a third season, and the feeling that, I honestly, every time, you know, I've just been astounded at the audience's willingness to go deep on a story and character. I think, you know, I've been in Hollywood too long. You start to underestimate the audience's willingness to think and engage and take a breath. And so this has been a revelation kind of over and over. So
was there any specific scene that was like kind of tricky or challenging to shoot in this season 3? Please do not spoil a lot.
Yeah. Were there any physical challenges this season? Not.
I have some that I can't spoil that had to do with weather.
A little bit.
It has to do with weather.
Yes, I remember. Yeah. You could talk about that, right?
Can I?
How many hours were you standing in the desert?
Here's the thing. Beautiful? The desert looks the same no matter what temperature is. So I just want you to know that when you see me outdoors at some point in this season for a long period of time, I am pretending so hard to be fine, but I am freezing my ass off. It was bitter cold and a sandstorm that are like millions of micro blades hitting you in the face while you're trying to talk.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the last thing you should do is tell Jonathan Banks that you had to be outside in the scene. He does not want to hear that. That man spends all of his time outside at 2 o'clock in the morning alone.
Yeah. I had a few scenes like that, but not this season, I don't think. In Breaking Bad, obviously, I had the scene with Jesse and Walter in the desert at night, and that was exactly what you're saying. We had a sandstorm, and it was freezing. And then we had a scene that was interesting because in Breaking Bad, it was me and Jesse and Walt, and we were waiting for somebody. I can't remember who. You guys probably know the scene. Somebody there. We're standing in the desert, and it was a continuation of a scene we had shot the previous season, and because of alterations in the schedule over time, the previous scene right before it was shot in the summer, and now it was winter in the desert, only we were wearing the same clothes. Luckily, Saul has a suit on, so I'm the only guy with long underwear and heat pads all over me. So I'm standing around being cool. And Jesse's got a short sleeve shirt on. Aaron's got a short sleeve shirt on. And he's, you know, it's like this. It's like, okay, action.
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah. Cut.
Yes.
So the first job is to act like you're not freezing.
Yeah, totally. We also had a scene. There's a scene where you're on your back and I'm leaning over, and we both had massive colds, and at some point we started laughing because we sounded like two toddlers arguing. It was a lot. He and I were pretending we didn't want to tell the crew or the directors that we were quite sick. We didn't want to be a problem, but we were both sick.
So sick.
And we're walking around trying to hide it, but kind of whispering to each other, as long as I stay upright, I won't have a fountain come out of my nose. And we walk in to block it with Adam. And I just remember immediately the director, the blocking is where they tell you to sit or stand, and sometimes you choose it, sometimes they have an idea. Immediately the director says, Bob, I think you're probably laying down on your back, you know, when you start hacking. And Ray, so I immediately thought, oh, and I'm probably sitting, really like sitting totally up. He said, no, I think you're like this with your head down over him, and Bob starts collecting in the nasal passages. I'm dripping down, and we sounded like angry toddlers.
I wonder how it'll sound.
I don't know. All I remember is, no, you, Jimmy, you did it.
So we had that. There's physical challenges, but mostly the bad guys have to deal with that shit. They're the ones out in the desert.
Yeah. Ours are mostly acting challenges, just trying to be able to act.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yo quería saber, Bob, en esta temporada es cuando vamos a ver la
I would like to know, Bob, because we are watching now in season 3, we are witnessing the transformation from Jimmy to Saul, and they're airing tonight episode 2. How do you deal with that change? Are you aware about when is it going to happen exactly? Is it planned from the beginning, or what's the feeling living behind Jimmy?
Well, not much is planned from the beginning on this show, and if I'm to believe the stories, it's the same was true on Breaking Bad. They found it as they went. There was an overall sense of the arc, and I believe the same thing is true on our show. In season 3, there's sort of an outward movement towards Saul, where he calls himself Saul Goodman publicly in a public way. That's a lot of fun, actually. That's some of the most fun we've had. There's some comedy in the second half of the season when my character needs to make money, and he comes up with some pretty harebrained schemes to do it, and those are really fun. So that's where you see him as Saul Goodman. But the truth is, the journey is an interior one, you know, for this character. And the way I perceive it, playing it, is he's he's kind of a sweet-natured guy, and he has a lot of love, really, for people around him, and a desire to connect. But as he gets pushed away, and his efforts to connect and to be a part of something fail, as his efforts fail, he starts to put up walls and kind of shut down. He kind of give up on other people and the hope of being a part of things in a way that he wants to, and I think he becomes kind of mercenary, which is out only for himself. And that's an internal journey that, to me, takes a big step forward in the second half of this season, and in a very in the way, without any spoilers. Every time Jimmy has a scheme, except in regards to Chuck, where he's trying to hurt his brother because they're fighting, but all his other schemes, there's always a victim, but it's collateral damage, and he doesn't see it until it's too late. He never sort of goes out to hurt anyone, except he kind of wants to have revenge on his brother a few times. Saul Goodman doesn't care if he hurts people, and he actually is completely aware that someone's going to get hurt, And so that's the big difference between the two, is that this character begins to make conscious choices to hurt other people for his own benefit, and he just says, I don't care. And
let's talk about Kim now. We know a lot of things about her, but of course we don't know everything. I would like to dig much more into her. Will we be able to do so in this season?
You do see a lot more of Kim's story and what makes her tick. And there's a big arc this season for Kim Wexler having to do with what happens when someone who plays their cards so close to the chest starts having to deal with the consequences of the external and internal challenges she's facing. Ending season 2, we saw that she took this Mesa Verde case, which was to protect Jimmy, but it was also for her own ambitions. She did not recuse herself from the case, she kept it. And I think that the idea that she has to now try to figure out how to navigate living in the gray areas, both in a law firm relationship with Jimmy and also in a romantic relationship with Jimmy, and also her relationship with herself and her ideas of morality, takes a toll on her in a very particular way that I do think exposes more about who is this person and what is the mask that she wears and what's happening underneath of it.
yeah, we spend, the third season spends a lot of time with Kim, and she starts to struggle with all the things she's trying to juggle.
It's about the most you can say.
I would put it.
Yeah.
And also, there's a sense that they want to give you, and I feel like you might want to talk about this, that, you know, Kim participates in Jimmy's little swindle of the guy in the bar. I don't know if you remember that.
The Giselle Victor scenes.
Yeah, so there's a sense that maybe this upstanding, play-by-the-rules woman that she's been is not really all of who she is, that maybe she has a past
Agreed.
that isn't completely the choir girl that she pretends to be.
The continuing sensation that there's a reason for this person to play the role of keeping it together and what she may have come from and what she's trying to hold
We
on
really
to.
don't know her past.
We
but
don't. She
it
won't even
sounds
say
like-
where she's from.
I think they really have a lot figured out on that, and it's going to start to matter more.
So maybe she needs a prequel too.
Oh, I think so. I'm for her having a prequel, and
It shoots in Madrid.
oh yeah. Well, now can I be in it? Jesus. No, I have to stay in Albuquerque.
Continuando con esta pregunta, os voy a hacer una pregunta de Twitter.
Linked with the question, let me read a question arrived through Twitter. Kim did not exist in Breaking Bad, so we can deduct that the relationship between you two is not going to end well. Without spoiling it, how is it going to end?
Well, they don't tell us, for one.
Yeah, we don't know.
I deduce nothing from Peter and Vince. I would not have been able to deduce the Better Call Saul story that they've spun out of the Saul Goodman character from Breaking Bad. So I know they have it within them to write whatever is the most compelling story they can. That being said, one of many reasons to write a prequel about the character Saul Goodman, and for that matter Mike Ehrmantraut, is that you never saw where these people were when they were not in these heightened circumstances. They were actually just small snapshots of life. So there is a sense that they could do whatever they wanted to. You never saw him go home. You never saw him hang out with anybody. You don't know if his family is around, if his brother is there, if Kim is there. That being said, we know the Kim that we met at the beginning of the show, in the pilot, could probably never exist in a relationship with the Saul Goodman of Breaking Bad. But where those two moving targets end up at the time that they cross, I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. I think it has something to do with where Kim came from.
I agree with that Twittery person.
Saying they could never end up together.
That they probably aren't together. I do. No, I agree. I don't know. I really don't. But it makes sense to me. I always, when I played Saul, and I still perceive it that way, he's a loner. Everyone has either abandoned him or he's pushed everyone away. And his life is the law office, the strip club, the golf course, law office, strip club, golf
right,
course.
it's true. There's a major loner quality about him in that show that you wonder if any of these people are around and have rejected him or have gone elsewhere or what. But we don't know. They don't tell us.
I should ask question number 2 from Twitter, but I'm jumping to question number 3, so question number 2 can be made by Mariló, because I like question number 3. What do you think about lawyers?
I think lawyers are necessary. I also think politicians are necessary. I'm not down with this modern, well, I guess they've both always been cursed and run down, but I don't know. What do you mean? We've got to have lawyers, guys. We can't talk to each other without...
Would you like to be one of them?
Police and lawyers standing around. We're all crazy.
Would you like to be a lawyer?
No, I don't want to be a lawyer, but we need lawyers because we're idiots. We're a bunch of crazy monkeys that wear clothes, you know, and we fight and argue and we don't understand each other. I mean, I'm sorry, it's too bad, but we need these intermediaries. It's a shame, but we do.
You agree?
That they're necessary, yes. I mean, I wish we were not such a litigious society, but I do think that we need lawyers for a number of things. I find it interesting in the show that they do investigate the idea that what's legal and illegal is not at all the same thing as what's good and bad or moral and immoral. And there's a strangeness to that being absent from a judicial system, but it's a necessity, because how else are you going to actually come to a decision about anything?
Mm-hmm.
Creo que podemos pasar a preguntas del público. Si...
I think we can go to the give the floor to the audience. If you have a question, just raise your hand and I will hand it a wireless microphone.
¿En español o en inglés?
In Spanish or English, either. Are we going to see Huey, the big security guard, the big black guy?
Huel.
Sí.
Well, what can I say?
Not a lot.
He was a person. He was in their world. We're getting closer to the Breaking Bad timeline. Could be.
¿Las preguntas?
How do you feel going back to Breaking Bad worlds? I mean, putting like Los Pollos Hermanos and all those things. How do you feel with that being in this series and not in Breaking Bad? Thanks.
It makes me happy. I mean, I'm a fan of the writing of Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould and all this crew. They're the ones who wrote it originally. I feel like they're entitled to draw from it. I think some of it's inevitable. Our worlds are meant to collide. It was always planned that way. So I get a thrill out of it. I know that Vince and Peter feel very strongly that they don't ever want to do things in a cheap way. They don't want to use items or characters or anything from Breaking Bad in a meaningless way to just distract people. And they don't. Gus is back, but he doesn't just walk through our season. He's got a story in season 3. He takes a lot of season 3 is Gus and his world. So I want to say it's 1/5 of the whole season is his story. So, you know, it's never done gratuitously. So I'm good with it.
Hey, so I would like to ask if you see the parallelism between the metamorphosis that Walter White is living in Breaking Bad and Saul Goodman is living in But You Better Go Saul. Maybe this is a key for the such a good reception, because it's indeed a variation of two characters that are very similar.
I totally agree. I feel like there is a parallel in there. I think it might be kind of a mirror image, though, in that Saul started as a petty criminal who was seemingly happily engaging in unethical behavior, and then decided to try to be a good person and worked very hard at that, and then becomes Saul, so abandoning those good, better angels of his nature. But then he's still alive at the end, and potentially, as Gene, the character in the Cinnabon, potentially could it take an opposite of the journey of Walter White and maybe learn from his experience and find some beneficial way to live in society. I think that would be a neat kind of comparison with Breaking Bad, but it's not up to me to decide. But it could happen that way. I mean, he's still alive, and we know he has a conscience. We know that he's a person with a conscience who we can assume maybe regrets his behavior as Saul Goodman.
Quick question. It's regarding the person with a conscience. There's a new guy in Washington who's potentially getting a tax fraud lawsuit soon. Do you think that Jimmy or Saul would represent him better if the money was right?
He wouldn't hire Jimmy. He would definitely hire Saul. Yes, I'm not sure the money would be right for Saul, but yes, he would. I agree. Yes.
Do you think that?
Hola, ¿por qué sigue Saul ayudando?
Hello. Why is Saul still helping Chuck? Is that out of love or convenience? Why is it?
Love. Yeah, I think he can't deny that. However angry he gets at his brother, or he will not give up. That he can find a way to be appreciated by his older brother, and gets this love and respect from him. He's sure that he can find a way. Jimmy is a optimistic guy in a lot of ways, and he's also he has some confidence that he can figure things out. He can come up with plans and plots and plans that get him somewhere. So it's true in you see it often in the show, and I think he feels the same way with Chuck. He can figure this problem out, and I won't tell you whether that's true in the end. You can. I think everyone feels the real truth to that equation. But Jimmy can't help but hope and try. And I think he feels bad for his brother. Yeah, and he feels maybe he is a part of his brother's problem, so he wants to fix it because maybe he caused it in part.
Hi. What character from Breaking Bad would you like your characters to have a storyline with?
Well, it would have been Saul Goodman from watching Breaking Bad, so I got that present already. And it's great to be a part of Bob developing that character in a way that I didn't see coming, nor did I think anybody did. Other than that, I mean, I was a huge Breaking Bad fan. It would be incredible to have scenes with any of those iconic characters. There are some that would probably end quite tragically if Kim met them, but there's others. Jonathan Banks and I certainly have some lively discussions about Kim. If Kim and Mike walked into a bar, I think it ends in a staring contest, just because they're both so silent and reticent to speak. But
what if Kim and Skyler walked into a bar? Would they be friends?
I think so. Those are two women that are very strong. She didn't know what she was getting into. Kim can see it and just keeps making missteps. But I think those are two women that know how to pick yourself up and keep going.
And I would like to see Jesse and Hank for different reasons. I mean, I just love Jesse, and everybody does.
That's true.
But
and Betsy Brandt. I'd love to have a scene with Betsy Brandt.
Well, Hank, the two characters, though, those are two characters who we can kind of assume knew Saul. because Hank and Saul have a little argument in the hallway in the police station. They clearly know each other. So that would be neat to see what that story was. And Jesse, I think, knows Saul, but it's hard to say whether he just saw Saul on the commercial or he had some experience with him. I feel he had some experience. He seemed to know a lot about the kind of lawyer Saul was.
Yes. And there's one I wanted to meet that you could see tonight on Movistar Plus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's one I wanted to meet.
There's one tonight. That's fun. Coming into the world.
Gus Fring también sufre una evolución, entendemos.
Gus suffers a transformation. He starts out being a character with a certain ethic or morale, and then is, falling down.
Gus is a more well-formed, more finely formed, I believe, but he does have a journey in season 3. So he's I can't talk.
It was great. Giancarlo Esposito did some amazing work showing you the nuanced steps before Gus Fring is fully Gus Fring, and not having complete control over situations, not having quite the command of knowing you're the one in charge. It's nuanced work that was really fun to watch.
Well, this one is for Bob and for both. Did you ever think that you were going to work with Michael McKean in a dramatic role? And did you admire previously Michael McKean, which in a sense he worked in comedy all the time, no?
Well, okay, I did not think I would be in a drama, no. I did comedy, sketch comedy, and wrote comedy, and I enjoyed it, and I like it, and that's where all my friends are, and so I never thought that, no. And Michael McKean and I actually worked together. He was a guest actor on my TV show, Mr. Show, that I did in 1991 through 95. 95 through 98. He was a guest actor on an episode. I knew him, but I knew him from when I was a teenager, and I listened to his comedy group, The Credibility Gap. It's some of the funniest stuff ever put on record. The Credibility Gap was Michael McKean, David Lander, and they were Lenny and Squiggy and Laverne and Shirley. Okay, so it was them. They were younger. They were just out of college, and Harry Shearer, who's on The Simpsons. So these guys were just out of college, and they were a comedy group in Pasadena, California, and they had a radio show, and I used to listen to them from their records of the time, which you can still get. And so I've always liked Michael's work. I've known his work since I was 17 or 18, and it was a dream to meet him, and then now to do this together is an amazing, amazing thing. It's one of the magical things about show business. If you can be a survivor in it, if you can carry on through years of it, it's amazing the connections you get to make and the people you can meet and get to work with in some capacity.
But there was a moment where Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul was supposed to be a sitcom. There was a moment when it was designed as a sitcom.
After Breaking Bad, well, everyone joked about Saul Goodman being a spin-off right from the first scene I did. A crew member made a joke. And then the second year I was on, Vince backstage said, "Hey, do you think there's a show in that character? I think there might be." And I said, that's how he does it. Yeah, that's how he talks.
It is.
I'm just really glad you're here, and I'm just really thankful you all are watching, and I don't know what I'm doing, and that's Vince. Very humble and nice person. So what was I talking about?
About the sitcom, about the Better Call Saul sitcom.
Yeah.
As a sitcom.
So initially, Peter and Vince said, what if it's a half-hour sitcom, just comedy? And then they talked about it being a 1-hour procedural, which is like NYPD or like CSI or, I don't know, like Law and Order or or a show like that where they said, what if every week Saul has a different client and he settles their case without going to court? He figures out a way to negotiate or bribe or, manipulate everyone involved to somehow win and probably not completely win.
That
was a clever idea. That would have been a fun show to do, right?
But that's The Good Wife.
Like what?
That's The Good Wife. What you're
That's The Good
talking
Wife.
about.
He's saying that's the show.
Oh, well, I've never seen The Good Wife. But, so...
They're very different suits.
So they said, what about that? And then they gravitated towards this, which is very much shared DNA with Breaking Bad, as we've talked about, but also is its own show. And I don't think our show could have existed without Breaking Bad. The audience wanted more of this kind of storytelling, the kind these guys do, but also the audience was tuned in mentally to watch this the right way. If you just started this show, I know some people have watched it without watching Breaking Bad and they've liked it, which is amazing to me and great, but just such a large number of people had already watched Breaking Bad. They understood that when you see a visual moment, it may seem insignificant, but watch it close because it might come back. They understood that when a person says something, the double meaning you might read into it probably is intentional and probably matters. So they watch it on that level right from the start. And it made it possible for us to do this show. So we're just extremely lucky in a million ways. And some people might think, obviously I talk about Breaking Bad a lot when I talk about Better Call Saul. And I think that they're just connected and we're lucky. And I don't, it's proper to do that, to acknowledge that this is all part of that, really. Did you have anything to say in regards to any of that?
I wanted to say something about Michael McKean. He's amazing. And was it you, sir, that asked? Hi. I was a huge fan. I mean, Spinal Tap, going to the midnight screenings and everything, which if there's anyone in here who hasn't seen it, you should just go now and just forget this. Just go watch it. But he co-wrote and starred in it, and then continued to do these sort of mockumentary famous films with Christopher Guest that are amazing. And I had the great fortune, I also have worked with Michael McKean before, on a comedy directed by Christopher Guest that was a pilot that ended up not getting picked up to air, all peopled with Christopher Guest, normal people, and watching those guys work is like watching great symphonic music happening. And he's brilliant, but I even then still didn't know the depths of his dramatic ability. And then my fiance and I just saw him in Little Foxes on Broadway, and he's an incredible stage presence as well. He's tremendously gifted. It's not, and I don't think it's lost on either one of us what it's like to be in a scene with him. He's a legend, and he's amazing, and he's a very genuine and generous actor.
Pero tenemos tiempo para una pregunta más vuestra.
We still have time for one more question. Hi. Relationship between Kim and Jimmy is one of the best things of the show. What do you think about that relationship of friendship, love, also professional relationship, and secondly, how is it going to impact on the evolution of Kim and Saul?
This connects with the earlier comment about where is Kim in Breaking Bad, and I agree with the Twitter question or whatever, but I would just want to say that in season 3, it's a kind of an amazing relationship that they've written. The characters really are a great couple, and it's weird, I feel like you don't see that a lot played out. It's almost like there's no reason to see that in a drama. Two people who like each other, help each other, forgive each other kind of fairly often, have a sense of the gap between them. They both know that they're not a perfect match in every possible way, that there's there's this things that Jimmy's going to do that she would never do, and so but they completely know this, and they stay on each other's side. And of course, the choice that Kim makes at the end of season 2 to not to reject Chuck's accusation and to sort of just support Jimmy, but right away in the car we know she didn't believe that. She believed Chuck, that Jimmy fucking pulled this switch, and she's gonna stay with him and support him through that. So it's this great relationship, and it's still very entertaining to watch. And then of course, because it's great, it would be the worst thing to lose. It's like when Walter White, and I'm not saying they lose their relationship. I don't know what happens before Breaking Bad, but if you're thinking about why would they have these two get along so well, acknowledging their own faults and their own gap in their personalities, it would be that similar thing to, I remember when I read the script from Breaking Bad, and I read that Walter White's cancer was in remission. And I remember thinking, well, you can't do that. I mean, you can't lose the thing that motivated this, right? But then immediately you go, oh, that's worse. That's the worst thing that could happen, is that he doesn't have cancer anymore. And these guys are really good at thinking about not just conflict, drama, all the drama coming from conflict, but what about when it's great? Now you've got something to lose. If these two were kind of at loggerheads and she was unhappy with him and he was unhappy with her, well, okay, well, they probably should split. They should get away from each other. But if they kind of have worked it out and they're great together and you watch them and go, that's a good relationship, now you've got something to lose. And so I don't know what happens, but I kind of feel like that my gut feeling is the same as the commenter, that probably that is a key.
Right. I mean, I don't think
block.
there's a way around that something sad has happened. I don't, but it's also in the corruption of other people, which I think we see Saul sort of spoil people. And I don't know how much of that is part of her future or how much of her own undoing is herself. But I do think that the relationship stands out to people, and I know that we're all very proud of the way it's written and directed and sort of the absence of things in it, that to have fans enjoy the relationship and find it to be so real and honest a depiction, and like Bob said, to oddly think that that's somehow missing from a lot of television shows. And when you think about it, it's because it's not based on a bunch of sex scenes, it's not based on a lot of kissing, it's not based on nudity, it's not based on a really sweet song playing every time they're staring at each other. Dave Porter's amazing at the edit, at being so economic with music, to not tell you what to think. And instead it's scenes where you're allowed to be mad, specifically a female character is allowed to be mad and not make it okay. Just get away from me. And that sense that we're allowed to be mad at each other, see each other's faults and see each other's flaws, and still be able to exit a scene because I believe you will still be there tomorrow, is what I think makes people think the relationship is real. And it's a really fun thing to play what's between the lines instead of having to say it all.
Bueno, pues yo creo que con esta reflexión tan bonita hemos llegado.
With this very nice reflection, I think we've reached the end. Thank you very much for being here with us. Thank you for Telefónica Movistar Plus. A big applause for Bob and Rhea.